Welcome to the Subconscious Elements podcast. We're going to use this platform to talk about spirituality, mentality, mindset, life skills, the journey of life. And we really want to keep it open to everything, but we're definitely going to start this series with the Gene Keys. It's a book that Tori came upon, and it's a pretty profound book. I haven't listened to all of it, but I've listened to my specific Gene Keys and some of hers. And there's definitely a lot going on with it. And I'll let her kind of give you a quick rundown.
Yeah, so the Gene Keys were written by Richard Rudd. And originally I heard of the Gene Keys through another podcast. It's called Deja Blue. And that's an excellent platform if you're not familiar with it. So the Gene Keys for me have been a great way of learning about the deeper levels of consciousness and truly helped me break down the shadow versus the city and seeing the differences within myself and within humans outside of myself. So basically the Gene Keys, you have to dive into the deepest depths of the shadows in order to transmute and transform the latent energy within that gene in order to transform it into the highest form, highest frequency.
So it uses like 3 different words to describe each gene, right? So there's like 64 gene keys, and it uses 3 words to describe specific frequencies that the gene can express. So the shadow is like the lowest frequency or vibration. And so it's like, you might hear it a lot, that's, you have to shadow work or deal with your shadow. So each gene key will be separated by the lowest frequency, which will be the shadow. And then there's a higher frequency that opens up to a gift, which then expresses itself in like an ability or like an action of some sort. So it could be like confidence, something along those lines where it manifests itself in a different mental state. And then the highest form is called a city. So I believe it's SIDDHI.
And it's something so high that it's almost unimaginable for humans.
And it's like and that's like an Indian word, right? Or is it, would you call it Hindu? Or, and it's expressing the highest state that you could mutate that gene into. So it's like when you finally transmute like the lowest depth of that shadow, it expresses itself as a city. And I guess what you could relate that to might be like peace, right? It's like, that is such a hard emotion to actually reach, right? It's not just like it's not as simple as confidence, right? So a confidence would be closer to gift, and then peace, inner peace would be closer to a city. Am I making sense on that?
Yeah, so I would say the gift itself is during the process of awakening through transmuting the shadow. So basically, people live in the shadow state and they're unaware that they are living through these patterns, and becoming aware of them is the first step, and then learning how to not be consumed by the shadow, and to, just like bison in the middle of a winter storm, they go straight through the storm because they know that way will be quicker than running from the storm, because inevitably they'll be snowed out regardless. So they choose to go through the storm. So it's the same thing with shadow work. You choose to face the fear, face the lowest frequency, and through that process, you will transmute that for not only yourself, but for others around you and for the human consciousness as a whole. So all the work that you're doing individually affects everyone around you, and therefore affects human consciousness as a whole.
Right. So I just kind of wanted to verify those 3 words.
Yeah.
I kind of
so
interrupted
shadow,
you.
gift, and then city.
Is there anything else you kind of wanted to talk about as far as like the introduction goes for the Gene Keys?
So basically, the first and the second gene keys, they are a prologue to the Book of Life itself. The first gene key is, it consists of 6 male lines, and this is actually related to male creativity. It's more in like the male, masculine, male fertility. And then the second gene key is 6 lines in the female. So it's actually the direction, it directs creativity into form. So you have the creative process, and then you have the actual form making process. So that's like everything that we see in this reality. So, and then the 63rd and the 64th are also like the epilogue of the gene keys itself. So it's kind of like the ending. So you have the prologue, everything in between, and then the epilogue, 63 and 64.
Okay. And so one of the things that I really liked about it, in the beginning of the book, it tells you that the gene keys are meant to be contemplated. It was saying that there's 3 major ways to reach enlightenment, and that's meditation, concentration, and then contemplation. And it explains that the gene keys are meant to be used with contemplation. And it gives the description for contemplation as like a way of thinking about it, like, but letting it play in your mind. So you're not like directing all your focus on it, but you're letting the idea, you're mulling over the idea, right? So like meditation is you go blank, and through that you can realize the subtle nature of reality. And then there's like concentration, where you put your full effort into focusing on something, and through that you could also reach enlightenment. And then contemplation is a mixture of the two, and it's where you don't go blank. You are focusing on something, but you're not like putting all your effort into it. You're just kind of playing. And that cracks me up, because that is also true in jiu-jitsu. You know, you can study it and watch it, you could do it, and then you also have playing. And playing, supposedly through science, is the fastest way to learn. And it's also one of the hardest things to do, because in order to play in jiu-jitsu, you have to be confident. You have to be so confident that you're willing to like take a step back. It's almost like the newer you are at it, or the less experienced you are, the more effort you'll put into it, you know. But as you get more and more experience, you realize that you don't have to go 100% all the time. You want to play. And when you play, your mind opens itself up to creativity and a new way of doing things, instead of being caught up in like the same patterns or what people have told you before. So that kind of like really resonated with me when it was saying that the gift of the gene keys is found through the contemplation aspect, where you kind of just like listen to it, and over time, as you contemplate what it says, you'll be affected by it.
Yeah, so what you're saying with the jiu-jitsu, it kind of feels like it would be like from form to formless, and allowing, like, you must first have the foundational knowledge and awareness and structure, so that you have the ability to then move into the formless and then express yourself individually with your own individual creativity. And it's like, you do know the moves, but your body and your mind, you'll create different variations, and from there you have a whole world of fun.
Right. You know, it's like you give beginners rules, like general rules, to like get them through their rounds or their sparring. But as they get better and better, they'll learn that they can break those rules in order to come up with new ideas or escapes or whatever. So like, for example, in jiu-jitsu, which is a submission grappling art where you try to tap your opponent out with joint breaks and chokes, one thing that you'll tell a beginner is, you know, a straight arm is a broken arm. So you don't ever want to straighten your arm out, because that's how you get put in an arm bar. But over time, you'll learn that you can definitely straighten your arm. You just have to be mindful that that attack can happen to you. And then you could even use that to purposely get your opponent to attack it, and then use that as a counter. So the better you get, you'll learn to use the rules as like a way to break them, or to get other people to follow them, so that you can like subvert them almost. So, yeah, just explaining that whole idea of how you need like a structure And then once you get to a level where you're intuitive with the structure, like it comes natural to you because you've done so many hours of practice that you can then start to play within the rules and then almost break them.
Yeah, I feel like that applies to all skill sets because I can see that in my other lines of work where things become so easy that you almost inevitably want to make other variations and other things to make it more interesting for yourself. Always being intuitive. But yeah, the first gene key, it is focused on entropy transmuting into syntropy. So basically, entropy is a simple definition of it is the locked energy or lack of energy within a closed system. So the more entropy that you have within you, the less energy you have for doing work. So this and an entropy in of itself within humans can create like numbness and depression. And the resistance of this feeling actually leads to it staying longer and therefore can lead to illness, can lead to patterns that humans create in monotony. monotony. And so it's just basically just self-deprecating to the human.
Yeah. So I said like entropy is like a gestation period for creativity. And man, it's like, it talks about how it manifests itself as numbness within humans. And I really related to that one because I definitely feel that. I do a lot of content creating outside this podcast. I have my own YouTube channel. I have my own podcast separate from this. I create memes. I create reels. And I'm also constantly doing jujitsu. And sometimes I just have these moments, and I'll joke about it with you sometimes, that like, I feel like sometimes the person, like as if I was a video game and the player on the controller just like gets bored and decides to like quit playing for a little bit. And I'll go through this period where I just can't or don't want to do anything. Or I can't even say that it's not that I don't want to, because I really want to. I really want to create things and I have all these ideas in my mind, but then out of nowhere, I'll just like, man, for like a week, I just won't be able to do anything. And I always wonder why. And like me and you talk about it all the time is like, man, what is going on? I just feel like I can't do anything today. And sometimes it lasts for a day. Sometimes it lasts for 3 days. Sometimes it lasts for a whole week where I'm just like in this rut. And I'm like, dude, I know how to do it. I know that if I sit in front of my computer, I'll start getting stuff done. But for whatever reason, I just couldn't do it. It's just like, no, my body is not moving from the couch or whatever. And then hearing it in this book, listening to it, you're like, whoa. Because it's essentially saying that it's a gestation period for creativity, so that these ideas that you come actually like grow inside you, and that they sometimes need your energy and time to actually like birth. And you know me, I'm constantly thinking of ideas like nonstop. I'm like, and so, and then it's saying that like, not only do you have to give it the time and accept it, but that fighting against it makes it last even longer. And then the more I think about it, it's like, that's exactly what I do every time. Every time my body doesn't want to do something, I like fight it. I'm like, no, you have to do these. You said you were going to do this and you've been posting every day. You have to post again. And then, yeah, it's saying that it makes it last longer, which makes even more sense of why it can be like hard to get out of that rut.
Yeah, it's like it was saying that it's a very fertile state and that basically you're planting seeds within your own mind and consciousness, and that, yeah, they need time to develop, they need nurturing, and forcing goes against your chemistry, like your whole body chemistry. And like I said, that can cause people to become bedridden in certain cases, that can cause people to create behaviors that they know that they shouldn't be doing, but they're like stuck in. And you just see people doing the same things.
Like stress eating.
Yeah, stress eating, drinking, all these bad habits that people create.
I become bedridden. I literally will feel like I can't leave the bed. And I'm like, I'm going to lay on the couch or lay on the bed. And it's like, all I want to do is sleep.
Yeah, I was saying that entropy is the black hole to creativity's white hole. So it's basically like a vacuum state where it sucks away all the energy. And yeah, you just have to accept it, allow it time, and it'll pass just as quickly as it appeared.
Yeah, if you accept it, right? It's like, and it's so funny that today's culture doesn't want, it like pushes against that. So it's like hard to accept it that you just need rest, and to just like let it be. It's like everything in today's culture is like hustle culture, hustle, hustle, hustle. It's like if you're not successful because you ain't hustling. You ain't successful because you're not waking up at 4 a.m. and doing this. You know what I did? I did this, this, and this every single day, 365 days a year, right? And that's like, you get on Instagram, you're going to get 2 things for sure. You're going to get, half naked chicks on your Instagram, and then a bunch of reels about like, it's just you out there and it's all up to you. It's hustle culture, hustle porn is what they call it. But no, I experience that all the time. And yeah, it's just really interesting to hear that in the book.
Yeah, when you see it and hear it written, you understand that it's not just yourself, that it's a entire process that everyone goes through. And the more that you dive deeper into the gene keys, you realize that it's describing the indescribable, something that I couldn't imagine putting into words. It put into words perfectly, and it just resonates so deeply.
Yeah, well, that's something that I wanted to bring up about the gene keys in general, and not just the first one, but it talks about how it's a communication to your inner self. That essentially gives you a way to communicate with yourself and help you break out of old patterns. And that might not make sense, but if you've been through, you know exactly what I'm saying. It's like we develop these patterns, and then, from your childhood and from school and from your parents and all these things, and then you don't even realize that you talk bad about yourself inside your own head, or that you have these limiting beliefs. You don't even understand that they're there. You just subconsciously believe that you can't be rich, or that you can't be athletic, or that you can't be these things. And essentially, the gene keys allows you to, one, like you said, have the awareness that they're there, and then also give you the vocabulary to change the words that are there. So it's like, one, like how we're saying with the shadow states and the shadow frequencies, it's like, one, most people don't even know that they're in them. And then just listening to the book explain the shadow, you're like, dang, I do that. It's like, I have experienced that emotion before, right? So then it's like, all of a sudden you're aware that shadow frequency is within yourself. So it shows light to where there was not once light. And then it tells you how to work your way through it, and gives you, like, again, like that vocabulary. It's like, one, you didn't even know it existed. Now that you know it exists, it's now giving you words. And it's like, it's like so crazy how powerful words are. It's like sometimes we forget. And, listening to this book, it's like, I'm thinking to myself how many times I say I'm dead. I use like I'm dead as like I'm dead from laughing, or I'm dead from because I'm tired. And I'm like, man, I should be careful about using that word on myself. And if you want to think about like, oh, well, how could those words actually be powerful? How are words that powerful? What I mean by powerful is that they're affecting your genetic state. Like, these words influence your body through electromagnetic signals. That's what this book is saying, right? And it's like, okay, let's say you want to put that under skepticism. Well, one thing that I've noticed is that people who you might say are on a lower frequency tend to use those words against themselves all the time. Like, they'll just be like, I'm going to kill myself, or, yeah, I hate myself. Or, they'll just use those words often, not only about themselves, but about other people. Right. And, I'm not saying I'm a higher or I'm enlightened or anything, but I just noticed that I try my best to not use those words. Right. And then when you meet someone who is what you would call in those really high level states, you'll notice that the way that they use their vocabulary is like precise. They're careful about what they say about themselves. They're careful about what they say about other people. It's like, yeah, they're definitely paying attention to the words that they use. So in just that aspect, you're like, I can pull from that. There could definitely be a lot of truth that the words that you use send electromagnetic signals. And it actually covers it in the beginning. It says that your environment should be increased to include your thoughts, feelings, and words, and that all three send electromagnetic signals to your body that turn on and off genes. And You're like, again, you might put that under skepticism. Like, okay, so my feelings and my thoughts and my words are turning off genes inside my body, like physical, genetic, or genes, right, in my DNA. And that just by changing these ideas will change my physical expression of DNA, and you want to put that under skepticism. It's like, I think with the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and some of these other like people on the forefront of like combining science and spirituality, that it actually does have a really huge effect. That if you change your mind state, yes, you can change your actual genetic expression, right? He's done his own studies. I wouldn't say prove, but I would definitely say that he's shown the data that if you change the way that you think, that you can change the actual expression of your DNA, the genes in your DNA. So like, man, the more that I read this book, I'm like, dang, he's on to something.
There's hidden knowledge in here. It's like they say, it's a gene key. So it's like a key or code that unlocks information hidden within your own DNA. And what you're saying with like contemplating these or challenging these thoughts, it's like you might have a lot of doubt, but what you're experiencing now is because of the things that you're thinking. So why wouldn't you give it a shot as to try to think something better, try to think differently, try to change your environment for the better? It's like, I hear Jordan Peterson talk about it all the time. He's like, just make your bed. It's like, okay, you did that. Great. If that's all you can do today, good. But tomorrow try to do something else. Like make your own food, prepare a fresh meal, do things that you know you're supposed to be doing that you're not doing. It's like over time, these things will become easy, and therefore you'll be able to take on more. It's like some people, they can only wake up and just make their bed and that's it. And it's like, okay, well, you know where you're at. So just keep trying. And with the words themselves, the first gene key was specifically relating to the word freshness. And it was chosen because it relates to like aliveness and like light. So in the beginning, as we've all heard the saying, let there be light, that was the first thing. So light is the first. And then it was said that those words were emanated after and with the light. So light and sound were the first two. And then light and sound created fire. And the first gene key is the ring of fire, codon ring. And it specifically ties in beauty and bounteousness, saying that our purpose as humans are to create beauty indefinitely and create the beauty that is aware of its own beauty.
Yeah. I can't say I exactly understand what a codon ring is and the ring of fire, but I know it was relating it to the creative energy of fire. And I'm a fire symbol. My element is fire, and I'm a Leo. And I'm very creative. Like I feel like so, and I think that you would agree with me that I'm very creative. I mean, I literally create podcasts and help people with their podcasts. And so it makes a lot of sense to me. But just a funny coincidence on the Ring of Fire. When you went and bought the book, so I had the idea for this podcast and I talked it over you and you're like, let's do it. We went and got the physical copy of the Gene Keys. There's only one left. I wanted to get you this for your birthday, but we didn't have the money at the time. But because we had it on Audible. We both have, we have an Audible subscription. And like I got the book because you told me to, and we both listened to it. So essentially, like how we kind of came upon the Gene Keys, like you found it, but you can essentially go online to the Gene Keys. You can tell it your birth date, your name, and
it creates a hologenetic profile for you for free. And then there's other options for if you want to dive deeper into it, but
which we need to do.
Yeah, we definitely should
pay for the premium subscription.
But the original thing is free. So you can get like an idea and it's going to give you like the terminology, like we said. Like at first it seems very foreign because the words are just something I've never experienced before. So it takes a while for you to actually understand what it's saying, but you can also like get the copy. I'm pretty sure there's like a dictionary in the back where it describes things for you. So
yeah, and so we listened to it on Audible. You've listened to it a bunch of times. I've listened to my own several times, and then I've gone through like different ones. Like I might have started at 36 and then listened to a couple other after that. But I never really like read it from like start to finish. But I did get my I got my hologenetic profile done, and man, when it like picks out specific ones that are major what would you focuses of your life. And man, when you read them, you're like, dang, that is trippy. It like really makes you think that like, yeah, maybe there is something to like where you are and this, like why you're here and where you are. And, so this is pulled from the I Ching, which is an ancient way of deciphering all of reality. And there are definitely Buddhas out there that can like predict the future. Like they have huge followings and they essentially spend their whole lives like traveling and helping people with their problems and stuff like that. And they all relate to, not that they got the specific information from the I Ching, but the I Ching is known as like one of the major sources to be utilized to like figure out like what is going on with you. So like there is like, this book is not just pulling from the ether. It's based on like a multitude of texts over the human lifetime that express like wisdom. But yeah, so anyway, I don't remember why I brought this up, but but when you went to buy the book, you also wanted to get The Circle of Fire, which by Don Miguel Ruiz, and he's a great author. He wrote The Four Principles, The Mastery of Love, and if you haven't read those books, they're super small. You can see this one's small. The Four Principles and The Mastery of Love are also, you could read them in a week or 2 weeks rather quickly. And yeah, you wanted to get this book, and I was like, yeah, get it if you want. That's not a big deal. And yeah, she went and got it, and then it just so happened that the first gene key's codon ring is
the Ring of Fire.
The Ring of Fire, and this book is called The Circle of Fire. So it was like, yeah, you went ahead and got that book, and then as soon as I delved into the first chapter so that we could do this, it was talking about the Ring of Fire, and I was like, dang, a little funny coincidence there.
Yeah, so diving deeper into like the Ring of Fire, it was saying the Promethean fire, like how people used to steal the fire from the gods, and only the people that were willing to be obliterated by it were even willing to handle the fire itself. So it was also saying in order to achieve the gift state and achieve the Siddhic state, you must be willing to die into beauty to move further along the path.
Because essentially you're finding out that something that you might believe about yourself is not real, or that it's not supposed to be, and that you need to change, right? Like, because now in today's culture, culture will push that a shadow state is a normal state, that you should feel like that, right? And so you might come across something in this book where it's like, man, that's like your whole reality, and you might have to let that go. And so that's kind of what it's referring to. And I've seen this countless times where you say something to someone and they're just like, you could just tell that they have identified with the opposite of whatever you're saying, and they're just not going to listen to you. I remember this one time I was just listening to two ladies talk. We're at work, and they're going over like, or they're talking about how this one girl said this one thing to them, and she's like taking it personal and she's like super upset and just like going on and on to this other chick. And I'm just like there eating my food, like listening. And I was like, yeah, she's probably really upset about something else. I just wouldn't take it personal if you can. Or, yeah, I wouldn't take it personal, And the other girl's like, how could you not? And then they were just like, turned their shoulders to me and like went back to like just talking a bunch of smack about this other person. And I was just like, it was just so funny. It's like, they weren't even open to the idea of just like
seeing the other perspective.
Yeah, like maybe whatever they said to you had nothing to do with you, right? And then so that's where I think it's like there's a good chance you're going to get burned by some of these ideas, because it's going to push you to, or it's going to tell you that this state that you're existing in, that you might have felt right about, that you maybe even base some of your existence on, is actually a shadow state, and that there's a higher form of it. But real quick to the Promethean fire. So Prometheus is the actual legend of the man who stole fire from the gods, right? So it was like, and the fire could be a metaphor for many different things like technology, powers, knowledge, it could be, or like intellect, like fire from the gods was like the human intellect or technology, whatever it is. Or it could be like actual fire. So like supposedly, so before the fire, we were like bush people, like cave people. We essentially were just like the Neanderthals. Well, I believe even Neanderthals had fire. So we were like lower than that, pretty much like creatures. And then Prometheus stole fire from the gods, and it allowed us to create civilization. So because we had fire, we were able to come together and then learn communication and pretty much start to like, instead of being like these solo creatures, that we would like form towns and civilization itself. And Prometheus was punished for stealing fire. I can't remember what I want to say he had to push the rock up the hill. No, that's someone else.
No, I'm pretty sure they just banned him from the town. They just kicked him outside of the city.
Man, we're going to have to look that up real quick.
Well, I remember specifically in the Avatars series that it showed one of the avatars as stealing the fire, and he actually got banned from the town itself, and he had to learn how to survive on his own. And basically they were saying that the spirits would kill him and that he wouldn't last one day. But he actually learned to befriend the spirits to the point where he was more on their side than the other side. And through that whole process, he actually brought the spirit world and the physical world together. Because they were at wars with each other, and it was basically like the animals versus the humans, and they were willing to all kill each other and just obliterate everything. But he was the mediator through both, because he had lived both experiences. So he brought everyone together, and then there was harmony. And
yeah, so it says he's known as the god of fire. Prometheus is best known for defying the Olympian gods by stealing fire from them and then giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and more generally, civilization. So yeah, the same thing that we had said. The punishment of Prometheus for stealing fire from Olympus and giving it to humans is a subject of both ancient and modern culture. Condemned Prometheus to eternal torment for his transgression. Prometheus was bound to a rock, and an eagle, the emblem of Zeus, was sent to eat his liver. Dang. His liver would grow back overnight, only to be eaten again the next day in an ongoing cycle. He was eventually freed by the hero Heracles. That's the story of stealing fire from the gods, and it's also even been related to psychedelics, that the fire is psychedelics. So it's just a trippy thing to think about, and those myths hold power for there's a reason that people still talk about this. But
yeah, and also if you've seen the new movie Elements or Elemental, they had to dive underwater. The fire being had to dive deep underwater with one of her trusted allies in order to see this flower that she had been wanting to see her entire life, and only through diving through the deepest depths was she able to see like this miraculous beauty and power.
Yeah. And so one of these days we're going to start breaking down movies. We've done it before. Unfortunately, we didn't get to continue with it, but as we get on with this podcast, I definitely want to take deep dives on specific movies. But it's so funny because the Elementals movie, one of the things that I directly related with this first gene key was how fire is like the creative energy, and the fire being in Elementals was a creator. She learned how to like make glass, and so obviously you're more of the silly water boy, and I'm a cool fire being. But yeah, I thought that was really cool because I do think that fire is very creative.
Yeah, and in a smaller sense that you can relate to more on a day-to-day basis, I think that we go through waves of entropy to creativity, and we experience this as like waves, but it was said that whenever you have a big fire burning, that you can be the light and affecting everyone and around you and like lighting the spark for them and allowing that to affect everyone in a positive way. And it was saying that these people are seen by others as a natural born leader, but they're always very reluctant to even accept any leadership roles. But I know that you've been in a lot of leadership positions in your life, so I'm sure that you can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, no one wants, I guess some people might want to be a leader for sure. But I think it's the main driving reason to want to be a leader is because you believe that you could do a better job of leading those around you, not necessarily to your own ends, but just like improve the life of everyone around you. And it's not necessarily that you know more than them. It's just like sometimes you're like, man, with just a little more compassion and empathy, I feel like everyone would feel better, And I feel like a lot of times the only reason I'm ever put into a leadership position is just because I've been around, the Marine Corps. And it's like one of the things that I would tell myself in the Marine Corps is like when you get to someplace new, you're like the bottom of the barrel. Even as you gain rank, you go to a new place, you're the lowest rank or the new guy who's going to take care of all the stuff that no one else wants to do. It's like, oh, new guy's here, put him on the next shift I can go on for days about the shifts that they'll give you that suck. And, it's just like anything. I would just tell myself, it's like, I'm the bottom now, but in however many months I will be at the top. And it's just, you just work yourself through it. And so as you work yourself and you experience these things, it's like out of nowhere, you're the only person left. And they're like, hey, you're in charge now. And so, yeah, like you said, I've been into a lot of different leadership positions. You've seen it. In just a short time that we've met, you didn't meet me until way after my military career, or at least several years after. And I've been a leader everywhere we've gone, whether it was in Myrtle Beach and in Houston, and it's not that we never make a plan for me to be a leader of anything. I just try my best to do a little more. And then when you're always trying to do a little bit more, you just kind of end up in this position of like-minded people that will also want to do a little more.
Yeah, the book was saying that allowing yourself to go through this process, you're allowing the spirit to move through you. And what the spirit wants is for you to be that light for other people and see the way that you can positively influence them for the better. And that's like its goal. So like wants you to be an open vessel and allow it and move the energy through. And it was saying that just as quickly as you can be the light, you can also go into a melancholy state. So just as much as you can imbue light into other people, you can as quickly take energy away. And I'm sure we've all experienced people that you're around and you feel drained by their presence. And it was just relating that to fresh flowers and how they quickly wilt. So it's just saying, just as the flowers, you need time for rest. So you can be that light and you can move forward and be that person for everyone, but you also must respect the body and put it through rest and give it what it needs, just so you can show up the next time as that person.
Yeah. What else you got, Tori?
Let's see.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say this while you gather your thoughts. Like the main, I wouldn't say reason, but I'd say like one of the best reasons for this podcast is that we're essentially contemplating the gene keys as we do this. And so it's like, it would be great if this becomes a really popular podcast and, it becomes like a mega hit. But it's like, even if it doesn't, we're learning a lot. And we're essentially doing what the book says, which is constantly going back through the information and just letting it, like, again, play with the idea of what it means to you and what it can mean for you, and fixing our vocabulary and how we talk to ourselves and others. What was the city?
The city is beauty. And saying that at the acidic level, frequency itself is obliterated and transcended.
Dang.
And yeah, the acidic level is beauty, and that beauty is so misunderstood because even calling something beautiful distorts it and removes it from the unity. And that true beauty lies in unity and oneness. And that I personally related that to samsara whenever we watch that, because it just shows like life as it is, with no embellishments, no filters. It's just everything that's we're experiencing, whether we perceive it as good, beautiful, ugly, bad, horrible, amazing, it is. And the fact that it is, it's beautiful. And we're not attempting to distort anything. And it's saying that anything beyond that is an illusion, and that our minds simply cannot comprehend the true state of beauty, and that it would be a light so pure. But it was also saying that, we see this as something external, and we see it as something that we need to like strive for or do something to achieve. But it was saying that it's not only preserved for the gods, that it's here right now within all of us, and that it's only if we choose to see it.
The beauty?
Yeah, the beauty in everything. Beauty in everyday life, and just understanding that everything that's happening to you, you can choose to see it in a different perspective, different light. You don't have to choose to see it as a bad thing. You can choose it as see something amazing. So when we're driving and something happens on the road, it's like you're driving a car in the middle of a floating rock in the middle of the universe somewhere in the galaxies. And it's like, that's amazing. It's like, you don't have to worry about someone flicking you off or trying to speed ahead of you. It's like, just the fact that you're here experiencing yourself driving a car is amazing.
Right.
You're experiencing yourself at work. It's like the fact that that job exists. It's pretty amazing. It's like maybe it's not something that you want to do for the rest of your life, but you have the power to change that through manifestation. And you can change your reality and experience other things. I mean, everything is beautiful. Everything has its own beauty. And you are where you are because that's where you want it to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. So also think about like moving and evolving. If you feel stuck or uncomfortable, that you should look for the next thing, look for the next step. Maybe it's just time for you to move on and do something greater, something better.
Yeah, I've definitely talked to people and, they're like, I remember saying something to one person. I was like, yeah, if you're experiencing a low, there must be a high. Like everything is waves. So, if something bad is happening, you just got to get through it and you'll inevitably experience good. That's just how the universe works. And then they'll be like, well, I haven't experienced nothing good in a long time. Or, yeah, this low's lasted for years or something along those lines. And it's like, obviously I'm not them, so I can't exactly say I understand what they're going through, but just at the time I was thinking, I was like, well, you're here, you have a job, you have friends,
you're good.
Yeah, you're living with your parents. It's like, that's a pretty good life,
Be grateful. I mean, you can compare it to anything. It's only good or bad in comparison to others. So just accept for what it is and see everything that you can be grateful for. And by thinking the thoughts that you aren't where you want to be is only creating more suffering. So accept where you are and then make the decisions and make the proper moves to move forward on a better path.
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much covered this. So just to make it very clear. So the shadow is entropy, right? It's that numbness is how it manifests itself. It could be a lot of things. And if you're fighting it, it could be more. The gift is freshness, right? So it's like you accepting the entropy and allowing it to be will then allow you to come forward with freshness in your life. And we kind of delved into like what that could do for you, right? And then the acidic state is beauty. So yeah, that's intense. And so I guess one last thing that I wanted to say was, so that it talks about like the dance of Shiva being related to the first gene key. And I had a specific experience with Shiva And I've never had an experience with any Indian gods before. I have multiple friends who have met Ganesh, and we've been to Indian temples, but I've never actually seen these beings before or anything like that. And one time, I smoked some DMT and not expecting anything to happen. I honestly thought it was just going to be another light state and I was going to be annoyed. But I ended up having a really intense vision, and I saw Shiva. And he was sitting Indian style, and I'm going to get a Shiva painting. He didn't make it for this podcast, but there will be one soon. But he was just sitting there in the typical state you'll see him in. I can't exactly remember where his hands were at. Maybe they're on his knees, but he was, sitting in the lotus position, and emanating from him was like mazes, like infinite, like mazes. And it could have been symbols, but just like on my peripherals, it was just like emanating like a consistent maze. And he said that the only thing that matters in this game is being present. Presence is the only thing that matters. And it was so funny because as soon as he says, like, I can't wait to tell Josh. And he goes, you see, you're not being present. And I was like, but I got to put it into words so I could explain it to him. So Josh was my buddy who was like trip sitting me. And he's like one of my best friends. And so I was like super excited to tell him like what I was seeing. And as I'm like formulating these thoughts, he goes, there you go. And he's like, you're already not being present. And I was like, okay. And I was like, but what about this? Or what about that? I was like, but this, but that. And he was just like, nope, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is presence. And I was like, as I was like coming up with these thoughts, it was like, as I came to him and I was experiencing it, like I slowly started to pull myself away because I wanted to I couldn't just sit with the experience. I was already trying to put it into words so that I could explain it to somebody, So anyway, yeah, the first gene key relates it a lot to Shiva, and that is my experience with Shiva. And he looked exactly like he does in paintings. So it's super trippy, and he has the snake. And I've been kind of fascinated by snakes recently. So yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that Lord Shiva's penis is actually the emblem of creativity. That it's like the thrust that you need to put you.
Well, I don't want to be thrusted by Shiva. Is there any last comments that you want to make? You think we wrapped it up pretty well? All right. Well, we appreciate you guys for tuning in.